G'day, guys. I thought I'd just knock through a quick review from Saturday just because it's a meeting that looks like it's worth going through. Don't know if I'll do these every week. Obviously, it was a bit more regimented when Paul was doing them, but I thought this week was worth touching base on. Some decent 2-year-old races. Weight for age horses coming back, so I won't muck around too much. The track was pretty fairish, sort of the inside in run certainly didn't look great. That was probably the biggest disadvantage on the day. Getting down the middle certainly looked the ideal place to be. A bit of cover in the run. Certainly the wind picked up too after sort of about race 3. So even though the times were a little bit quicker, say early 2-year-olds compared to later in the day, just be wary that the wind was also up. But I'll sort of go through that. Nothing to the times coming home weren't significantly quick in any of the races except for the weight for age race where they walked. So I'd say the wind had a decent effect on the times overall, but for the most part, a lot of these were not grand finals. They were lead-up races except for probably the Millenium. So we'll get through it. And starting with race 1. This is an interesting prospect, this horse, Cafe Millenium. So the 3 horses sort of get squeezed out at the start there. What are they? Cafe Millenium, Empress of Wonder, and the favourite Don Corleone. And interestingly, sort of Empress of Wonder came off the best out of it. Ends up sort of in the 1-1 and really is not disadvantaged, whereas Don Corleone gets a little bit rolled up back towards the inside. And this horse here, which is the horse of the moment, Cafe Millenium, is out the back and basically, not taking part in the race. The time overall, they're going quite quick up front. The leader here is Chevron, and certainly overdoes it. Stays on the inside. I'll be forgiving a bit wherever it went. If it went back in grade, I could certainly entertain finding it. I don't think its run was all too bad. It's certainly established a nice big margin over the majority of the field here, and certainly only comes back to them the last 200. This big horse down the outside runs about the 3rd quickest, I think, last 200 of the day. Quick sort of last 8.64, and as I said, the first 3 here are the quickest to the 400 of the day. So they've gone out quite quick here. This big fella sort of winds up down the outside and is able to rattle off, fast 8.64 and extremely solid last 200 metres strong through the line. So this is only 1,100 metres on debut. Hard to see him not being an improver. Will he get around a track like Rose Hill? That's yet to be seen, but certainly a huge upside for him going forward, and that's the main thing we're sort of looking at here. Don Corleone back towards the inside. Certainly wasn't the best part of the track to be doing that, but I think he had his chance, and Little Remedies. This is what sort of scares me about this race. I think this horse has had enough Empress of Wonder, but very fit horse, so a decent benchmark. This is a short course horse, had every chance in the run, got to the right part. Did win on debut, but not overly strong. Snowden always tends to back off these horses once they're qualified pretty much for the slipper. So I would be expecting Don Corleone to have a bit of improvement up its sleeve, but it would probably want to, going back in the field, High King was an excuse run, sort of wide, no cover, but still a little bit plain. Horse I'm kind of in love with, but going to sack for the time being is Razors. Just has no clue what it's doing in the run, doesn't know how to race, and looks field shy, doesn't look like it ever lets down. What I'm saying is this whole race is a little bit scary, and it's a little bit similar to the one later, but what is real is what this horse does the last, look at it, 100 metres, it's still sort of too often, and you can't fake what he's doing to that field and what he's doing to the entire field running away from them. Ears pricked through the line, certainly not stopping, and yeah, he's worth watching again. Did he have everything in his favour? Potentially, but he was having his first start in a race over 1,100 metres. Look at the big long neck on him. And as I said, sort of ears pricked through the lines, done his job, and he looks like he could go around again. So he's an exciting horse. Certainly to me looks a size champagne horse. That's 1,600 metres. But again, to be able to do that over 1,100 metres, you'd expect him to be maybe, I'd say, in sort of the mould of Vancouver, that he could possibly sit wide and still win a slipper. Certainly not saying he can't. How do you line this form up? Yet to be determined, but he definitely, there's no warning signs with this horse apart from the lack of early speed to say that he's not the real deal. So he's a pretty exciting horse, and it was worth spending the extra time on. Cafe Millenium. Race 2. significantly less to see here. Not a race of any real significance. I thought the winner was certainly the best run. Put together, again, some really solid last 800-metre figures. Probably had enough through the line, but was stepping up in distance, and that's a good sign that this horse had sort of spent all its carrots late and may have improvement again. Had its own way out the back. Where is it here? I think it's second last Amaranth. It's in the red and white. I think it's back third last. Is it here? This is it. So they've not gone along overly quick. They went out pretty steady to the 800 metres, 600 metres mark, and they've come home sort of 3 lengths above. So for this horse to make up as much ground as it has, significantly solid effort. That's it here, number 14. So when the sprint goes on, left touch flat-footed, not crazily flat-footed, but again, I like that sign when you're going up a distance. Here you can see sort of ridden along, takes a while to stoke up. There's not a lot of excuses for those in behind that I could find. I thought they all pretty much had their chance. Spitfire held up momentarily. Lord de Sonamo, they're sort of going back towards the inside. The horse that runs second is what's it called? Do This All Day sort of runs fourth. There's a tiny bit held up, but most of them basically have this chance, and this guy sort of just rounds them up and runs away from them. So to me, he's the only horse really to follow. They're all honest behind. They're doing similar things most of the time. Mr. Severino and the mighty Spitfire. It's scary that Metal Bar takes a bit of ground off them late. I think that sort of shows up this pack that they're all pretty similar level. I'm not looking to find too many of these horses in any races really. Bayako was a little bit disappointing after a good win first up 1700. May have flattened him. He may be worth another chance because he's going to be such a big price next time. But honours with Amaranth. The one forgive probably was King of Spades, who did sit wide, no cover in no man's land there. And there were a number of questions asked of the poor rider. I didn't think there was anything untoward there. Just a horse that didn't have a lot of luck on the day. Race 3. This is quite interesting, I thought, because they didn't go that fast here. They've gone pretty slow. This horse, Mabel, back to 1,000 metres. She's just an absolute specialist, it seems, at this distance. Had been stretched out a little bit. Back to the 1,000 metres, allowed to settle. She's back third last here, and really does make them look a bit ordinary late. I thought the ride was really good, just sort of pinch runs through the middle rather than come around them, and had a bit of luck in doing so. But all in all merit with her. Espresso, every possible chance. The 3 up front, as I said, they're not going too quick. So even though they maybe you're sort of facing the breeze a little bit, and Vegas Raider ridden upside down, I think they all had their chance. Depth at Varies gets held up at the end, but I thought it had its chance off the back of Espresso and just wasn't going well enough to take the run. Another Cognac, every chance. What's Nicky's name? Will we get the right race up? That'll help me. Nicky Song, is it? Nicky Song, every chance down the outside. Another Cognac, every chance. I thought whatever the favourite's name is, hard to say, was just a ridiculously short-priced horse, all things considered, and with its racing pattern always needs a bit of luck. Barticelli was a complete forgive, wide and over racing. It's a horse that sort of needs to get up on speed and dictate. But as I said, I think the winner's pretty dominant there, late over 1,000, and I'd surprised if any of those horses could beat her over this sort of track and distance again, even though she did have quite a few favours. Espresso's going okay, but what you see is what you get with sort of second through fourth or fifth. Didn't think any of them had any excuses. Probably Vegas Raider ridden upside down, and Barticelli were the only two that kind of did, but a bit of a nothing race. Race 3. Race 4, thought the story of this race was basically the ride from Brenton Abdullah. Just a completely dominant display ride-wise, as in it just took control of the race. The horse has not got a really solid turn of foot, but he's just built through its gears. It's come home and run very sort of even sections late that don't look anything too special on paper, but really played into this horse's hands, just allowed to dictate and pulled their pants down to a certain degree. You can see it's a little bit keen here, but that's about it. It's a race that's really nothing. Bazooka was a good effort, chases hard back here from the blue cap, just chases to the Lion King. Rattel misses the start again, runs fast sections, he always does, but usually from an ordinary spot. Bold Mac didn't have the tempo on to suit this time and did an okay job, I guess. They all did okay. Tarazel, okay. Caboche back towards the inside. Ruby Tuesday sat outside the leader and weakened, and the horse out the back, what's it called? Athabaskan was only fair. I don't think it's really even worth spending time on. It was one of those races where the best rider was probably going to get the job done. No knock on the winner. He's had everything go his way, but he was nice and solid, never looked like getting beaten. So it's hard to take those sort of horses on that can get up on speed, and when they're allowed to dictate, they can get away with the race. This race is a little bit more different, So here they go out okay, above average to the 8 and the 6, and then just below average coming home. Decent race overall. So you see, there's really bunch margins. I think if they ran the race a few times more, that Mr. Mosaic would win it more times than he wouldn't. A horse that was probably expected to be up towards the speed in the first 3 or 4, and you can see him sort of out the back last. Not Mr. Mosaic. What's his name? Mr. Maestro. Mr. Maestro. Hello, Mr. Maestro. Mr. Mozart. So he's out the back. He would have been expected to be on speed. I thought the other poor ride in the race was Espiona. The winner, certainly, Quantico, gets every conceivable chance in the run. Thought it was a good ride from Titanium Power to let Stompy go to and track him, to keep him off the inside there and get to the right part in the straight. Most of these were decent rides, and Testator Silence is the horse that maybe puts a dampener on the race overall, or is the horse going really well? The other horse that ran quite poorly, Hard Empire's back second last after sort of jumping pretty well. It can probably improve a touch. Ranch Hand was really disappointing. I thought quite keen in the run and didn't finish off at all. So I just thought that Espiona, he fell for the 3-card trick here, and he really rode the horse way too close first up. She's obviously a little bit fresh. You can see she's keen. He never tries to sort of angle at any stage here. You would hope that he'd try and sort of angle to the outside of Titanium Power, or at the very worst underneath Titanium Power. He doesn't. He's only got eyes for the inside here. Gravina's sort of holding him in the pocket there. I know the gap just magically opens that he probably would have got, ends up getting that run Gravina. This is Mr. Mozart in behind. You'll see he just runs straight up the backside. Another one that it's amazing. He must have just thought after it missed the start, he was in a lot of trouble and didn't really try to angle it towards the middle. Collett does look for those miracle runs quite often as well. So very unlucky Mr. Mozart. Hard Empire just died on its run. Espiona died on its run. I think it had to. I thought its run was really good. First up, you can see it's there right to the 100-metre mark in the worst part of the track. The horse we sort of talked about, Testator Silence, who was well out of its grade here, ran quite well up the inside. I think it's going better than its form suggests. And, even the horses that aren't beaten far in, Stompy, who led and set a solid tempo and stayed towards the inside, and Ranch Hand, who got keen in the run. They're not beaten far. So what do you do with that race? Not really sure, but they're all going well enough. Quantico, no knock on it. First up from a long spell. It certainly was flattered by winning, I think. If they run that race, a dozen times, I don't think it wins too many more than one. But, right place, right time did the job. Gravina was okay. Who else was up there? Titanium Power was solid. Really good ride, but hard fit horse. And as you sort of said, Mr. Mozart's the one that sort of takes away from the ones up front. Probably should have definitely got the job done. I think Espiona, with a better ride, would have been in the finish as well, even though she knocked up, and she is testing people's patience. There's no doubt about that. Inglis Millenium, won't talk too much about the interference. Thought it was a bit unlucky. Obviously probably shouldn't have been going where he was going, Josh, but very unlucky with the chain of events that sort of happened. Everyone sidestepped. All these 2-year-olds tend to overreact, and he's flattened poor Tommy Mark on, and thank goodness he's looks like he's going to be okay. So no major damage at all, which is a dead set miracle. We'll go back to the start quickly. Sorry, the winner, who all been pretty vocal, is a very nice horse before its first start, after its first start, and leading into this race. He's learning to fly. Drawn out wide, just dragged right out of the race. Interesting to see Gay's horse Gambari dragged right out of the race as well. I think this is right against her pattern here. You can still see she's been restrained. So that's the 800-metre mark roughly. And for the first 400 metres, she's been dragged back, or 300 metres, dragged, ends up in a 3-wide trail, which wasn't too big a disadvantage on this day. But they're not going, super quick here. They're going slightly above average. The time coming home's not great, which allows her to certainly finish off over the top of them. You can see she's still racing sort of awkwardly, loses momentum before the turn. Very lucky to have pulled wide just before this interference happens. We'll talk about it. So here it comes. it's a shame that sort of the Altamonte horse, I still think Josh, if he had his time again, he definitely wouldn't even be looking to take that run that he sort of angled towards. He would have been a little bit more patient. Maybe the horse surprised him that it was going a little bit better than he was. But regardless, the Camilleri horse sort of comes out quite sharply and carries Josh with him into Tommy Mark One on the Tricolours horse. Gay's horse gets flattened, and so does Arizona, Arkansas Kid. They're the main three that sort of cop it, and most of the rest of them miss the interference. Blanc de Blanc sort of cops a little bit of a sideways check, and the others come out. So what do you do with this form? This is my thing. So you got Facile, who was drawn inside, had forced inside on the bend, not the right place to be, only first up, thought it ran well. Lazargo, very similar, but obviously got a little bit further off the fence, held up for quite a bit, pokes its nose through and I think peaks. You've got Kundalini, who I think had the advantage of having that lead-up run, every possible chance in the run. It's the one with the least upside for mine of these horses. Blanc de Blanc, who from all reports paraded, and I saw it as well, paraded, only fairly with a lot of upside. It's run quite well. The winner, as we said, sort of been dragged right out of the race, come over the top of them. I think it's the dominant horse here, but there's just so many niggles for me. Like, look at this bunch. You've got Hellish here, who's the horse that caused the interference, or the majority of the interference. It's finishing on their tails. Gambari, who was dragged out of the race. Interesting horse, this Gambari. Don't think Gay would have wanted it ridden like this, and I doubt it will be in the future, but good to see it finishing off so powerfully, ridden that way. It may be a sneaky horse for a race like the Sires and the Champagne, but it probably has to contend with Inglis, Cafe Millennium, and even the winner as well in a race like that potentially. And the other thing that sort of scared me is you've got horses like Saltaire, who sat wide and not beaten too far. Mexico just weakening there after sitting outside the strong tempo, wide no cover. And then even a horse like, what is it called? Imminence, the Aaron Lang horse. It's just not beaten too far. It's only beaten sort of, 3 lengths or something like that. In behind them, it's just the bunch margins of what scare me. The 2 races on the day, I think there's some talented horses in there. Whether they're suited at this sort of distance range, I'd say, ridden closer, out in distance a little bit. I think this horse in front is a very good horse, learning to fly. Whether horses like Blanc de Blanc, Lazargo, Facile can bridge that gap in the coming weeks, going up in distance is an interesting idea. I just kept coming back to that Gambari run. It was quite interesting because it didn't look an on-pacer at Canberra and sort of just battled away strongly. I know that probably wasn't ideal ridden that way from the stable's perspective, but it showed that this horse can certainly finish off a race. So be interested to see what Gambari does going forward, but all eyes on Learning to Fly for me. I think it's certainly the horse to beat in all the major races so far, with a huge watch on Cafe Millennium in the first. Lightfinger Stakes, probably not a surprise to see In Secret miss it a little bit here. Main talking points, probably have to go back through it a few times. I thought there were a lot of good runs here, but the time overall is nothing spectacular. They go out sort of a average, slow it up, and then come home pretty average. They go out pretty steady early, then slow it right up, then come home just above. So the leaders had every possible chance in Cinderella Girl. Is it? What's it called? Jesus Christ, how am I going? Cinderella Days. She's a belter ridden forward, probably just knocked up late. So did North Star Lass. The horse that had a bit of residual fitness, but was way up in grade, was Sunshine Paris, the horse that I'm in love with. Thought it was ridden too close, but I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm saying that the gate 1, he couldn't have given it a better ride than what he gave it. I think this horse is better settled a pair further back, say where In Secret was, or even further, coming to the outside and finishing off. I think that's her go, but under the circumstances, he gave the horse as good a possible ride, and certainly no excuses considering she had a bit of a fitness edge. Maybe it's not her preparation. Maybe it's all a bit quick for her, that she's sort of gone from a Canberra maiden to up to Brisbane, back. She's done a lot in this first preparation. I still think she's a star of the future. There is no doubt about that in my mind. The winner, what a ride from Nash. He is half kidding to them because he finishes off and runs like, better get it up. He runs the 5th fastest last 200 of the day. So even though he visually doesn't look like he's getting right away from them, he doesn't look dominant. He's certainly done a really good job. Finishing off wise, again, we've got bunch margins. Revolutionary Miss was a good effort through the middle. Thought Rosetta was a good effort through the middle. Madame Pomeroy was an enormous run. Thought she looked incredible in the yard. Certainly plenty of upside to her this preparation fitness-wise. Thought her effort was great, and she visibly peaked for sure late. So I think she'll strip way fitter. She may need one more to get to her top, but third up, I think she's going to be very hard to beat, whatever she contests. A lot more love was incredible from the back. Thought she really hit the line strongly late after giving a soft time of it the first half. Missing anything, Cinderella Days had a chance for sure. Fireburn through the middle, just grinding a bit, but not a bad effort first up. The winner, yeah, is just there's something special about her, but the ride was special. She's really good. Second horse, good. Not too many poor runs in this, and I think most of these horses maybe not going to top grade. Horses like Rosetta and that are eligible for easier may be able to pick a race off. I think the bunch margins here are just a sign of not much between a quality bunch of fillies. As much as I tried to dissect and take away why they were so bunched, but just a product probably of most of them being first up and a mixture of setups coming into the race. But no knock on anything in the race for mine. The only horse that was probably a touch flattered was Cinderella Days. Will it struggle to hold these horses off later into the prep? I'd say so. North Star Lass has probably found her level. She's a belter, ridden quieter, but I still think she's probably a rung below the top notches. I do think that sort of in secret Madame Pomeroy, I expect Sunshine in Paris. If they keep going on with it, I'd be surprised. She may struggle to measure up to these horses this preparation, but obviously she's not been beaten far there, and I think she's a pretty talented filly, as I've sort of been vocal about. A lot more love, whether it's at this level or just a touch below. If she was kept to the grade below, I think she'd be mighty hard to beat in anything she contests as well. Same with Fireburn. It's hard to say that about a horse that was so good as a 2-year-old, but I just think she's maybe a length slow of these top liners, and whatever they do with Zougotcha, obviously she's got to be plugged in there somewhere as well. Race 8, Apollo Stakes. You've got to love this horse, but you probably love to hate it if it's a bookmaker. Anytime there's sort of a 50-50 decision for this horse from a draw perspective, it tends to find the right spot. And obviously that's a quality of a good horse as well, a horse that can hold a position and then hold horses off. And you can see he's not really that well out Animo, but he picks up. James McDonald really sums the situation up well. He knows that Hinge is going to roll forward. The horse outside him is pretty much planted there. So he just takes his time. He doesn't bustle this horse and doesn't put any undue pressure on the leader to push the tempo. Just allows the race to unfold, flops into the perfect position. They go out sort of 10 lengths below standard to the 600 here. Slow to the 8, slowed even further down to the 6, and then they zip home. So it's just impossible mission for just about anything to come from behind him, and he had a little bit on the ones in front of him. Hinged every possible, battled on quite well. Law of Industry is a little bit disappointing outside the leader. Arapaho just out sprinted when the real pressure goes on. Same for Surefire. I thought most of these runs again were pretty good. Mwanga just gets cast wide there. He tries hard through the line. Ice Bath back in the middle in the blue cap. Tried hard. Fangirl back towards the inside, sort of checked for momentum there. He had a brief look to try and get off and then forced back to the inside. Her run was incredible. She couldn't do anything more than what she does here in the wrong part of the track. So she's returned really well. Fangirl, just again, a victim of her lack of early speed. She just gives up that tactical advantage to a horse like Animo, and that's the only difference between them over this sort of distance in this sort of race. You can see she's super strong through the line there. Stockman again warming up really nicely through the line. El Bodegon was probably the one that was a little bit disappointing, but I don't think he ever really got room to move. I think he's a horse that needs to sort of get up on speed over further and use his stamina edge over these horses. He's not really going to out-sprint them unless he's in a better position than that. Even Surefire picked up again back through the line. I didn't think there were too many disappointing runs there. Probably Law of Indices was the only one, and it did sit outside the leader, and he's off the back of a Hong Kong preparation. So no real surprises for me there. Nothing really much to talk about. Just he does what he has to Animo, and he couldn't do much more. They're coming home so quick, and the ones behind couldn't do much more either. It's just interesting. This bloody Stockman, he just keeps getting better each preparation. The Pride team really are going well. Triscay Stakes race 9. Poor old Bakari Kari, I saw it copped a 20-point boost in its benchmark rating for this win. Probably deserved, arguably, but because of what it does to its value and everything, I'm sure the ownership group won't be too disappointed whatsoever. She's got a Group 3 win next to her name now, and she certainly deserved it here. She gets the right run back midfield, cuts through them, but just completely outsprints them. They go slow to the 800, quicken up slightly to the 600, and then quicken up, not too much, all things considered here. They run just above average time coming home. So she's obviously come from a position that's, 5 or 6 off them. So she's run home very well, but those on speed certainly had their chance. What's the name of the favourite here is Norwegian Lass, head outside leader. Outsprinted, been a little bit plain. Jumped the broom every possible. Cur Royale every possible. Larkspur run, bit of a weird run. Didn't use the gate at all. Stayed towards the inside. Fourth towards the inside. And a little bit plain nonetheless. Bellatrix Black, every chance in the Australian Bloodstock colours there, back towards the inside, cut through the middle. Swats that was ridden perfectly. If anything, maybe just didn't, or positioned perfectly. If anything, just didn't quite read the play and take off a little bit early to put it in the race. All think how slow they'd gone, and was out sprinted by Bakari Kari, but with a lighter weight and positioning run. But you can see that Swats that sort of could have been up outside those leaders nice and early. He sort of got that position there where he could have come around Norwegian Lass, seeing that it's working, could have easily sort of slotted onto the back of Norwegian Lass and then been right on its hammer and chiming in, considering how slow they went there. I thought he sort of just missed the boat a little bit, but the winner's out sprinting regardless, gets that beautiful run through the middle. That is a Tyler Schiller special. He's doing this a bit. He's very good on riding these horses that just need to be ridden cold back in the field. He doesn't panic and go around them. He sort of waits for those splits. Sometimes they don't come, but he often wins the race because of the runs he gives them. No excuses at all for any of the Beaten Brigade. Written Beauty was ridden back off the speed, right back off the speed, which and kind of green early. She finished off the race quite well, but no real excuses. Poor ride on Larkspur Run, but beaten so far. He couldn't be that disappointed. Jamea, I think, is a bit of a light of other days. Thought that's as good as she can possibly go. More profit every possible. So I said Swats that as well. So no excuses for the Beaten Brigade, really, but it's not a deep race. So be wary of this form. I think the horses in this race are all going to need favours to win races. A few of them do have fitness upside, like Jump the Broom and Swats that and more profits. A lot of them do, to be fair, but horses like Norwegian Bliss and Jamea really may have found their mark. They may struggle to be placed better than that going forward. The last, a bit of a poxy race too. They go slow here. They slow down even further to the 600-metre mark. So the leaders, poor rides for mine, didn't take advantage of the advantage that they were given. They were allowed to control the speed up in front, and then they slowed it down even further, allowed horses like Think About It to come into the race really cheaply. Disappointment in the race, no doubt. Waterford lobs just in behind, whether it was a bit fresh. So he's a little bit keen there, running 5th on the inside in the white and red checks. But hard to forgive. I'm not sure what to do with Waterford, to be fair, whether it's just a big track, big field, high-pressure horse, or you can see here it's just sort of pulling itself into the ground a touch. Frenelli missed the kick and is there sort of driving it mad outside it. No real excuses again for any of these beaten horses that I could really find. Just felt that it was a pretty weak race overall. The horse with all the upside is the winner. Think About It, half missed the kick. When Clipperton will drive you mad too. When he knows what he's got under him, he's such a better rider. When he rides Marzu, he looks like a different rider. When he rides this horse, he looks like a different rider. When he rides Wallenby, that he rides a lot, he looks like a different rider. When he's got a bit of confidence, he's certainly a much better rider. You wish you could just install that in him every time he went out, because he can ride and he rides his horse really well. Horse is quite dominant. Pizarro does his thing. That's as good as he can possibly go. Kanazawa, every conceivable chance. Much, much better, as he said. It probably just didn't quicken up early enough on it, but still out-sprinted late. No knock-on. No excuses, sorry, for any of the rest. So the winner, he just keeps on winning. That's all you can ask. He's a horse to me that I don't know how far he'll go within this prep, whether he'll just continue on or whether he might try and pick off one more or something like that, and then tip him out, because to me he's a horse that's still sort of 6 months away from being a potential, top line-ish horse in the right race for sure. It's just a matter of timing with him, whether he's got all, he's as strong as he's ever going to be, or whether sort of pride looks after him and comes back next preparation and is a really strong horse. But as I said, that was a very poor race, and he was ridden back because of the gate and how awkward it looked, and he was able to overcome that. So certainly no knock on Think About It. Stands out in that race, and just a couple of average rides, I thought, on paces. They're not taking advantage of it, but it may not have changed the result. Horses to follow, I think I've kind of tried to go through every race and highlight the ones that are sort of well set up going forward. Cafe Millennium is certainly a horse that I'm excited to see what he can produce going forward. All in all, it was an interesting race, but an interesting race day with a lot of interest. Will come from it going forward. The fillies, the Lightfinger Stakes is a great feeder race. The 2-year-old's a great feeder race. The Weight for Age form will be a great feeder race. I think all of those horses have come back in strong enough form to really compete during the Autumn Carnival. The last couple of races are probably the couple that are, not super strong heading into Carnival time, but are definitely not going to knock a horse like Think About It. Just the Beaten Brigade behind it, and Waterford, I guess you've got to be forgiving of it. Thanks, guys. That's about it. If you want me to do any more like this, let me know. But it's just more to make sure that I do everything as thoroughly as I can as well. I love going through these meetings, so I'm happy to do it. Cheers, guys. Bye.